Okay guys, so we're almost done. This is actually the final unit that we will be doing for the entire class, and it deals with culture and cultural diversity. We're specifically going to take a look at some of the culture in the United States that makes us who we are and transmits values, things like that. So the first thing we have to do then is actually define what are we talking about whenever we talk about culture. Culture are all the shared products of human groups. So unlike most animals, humans are not totally controlled by instinct. We can and do adapt to our environment. The ways in which we do this are the foundation of our culture. Culture is absolutely essential for our survival. It's like the core of ourselves. It lets us know like what we should eat, what we shouldn't eat, how to spend money, how to behave, how not to behave in certain situations, etc. Like literally everything we do is defined by our culture. So we can divide culture into two really large groups. You have your material culture, which is anything that is physical. Books, cars, building, clothing, your laptop, your phone, anything like that. Like anything that you can touch is material culture. You also have your non-material culture, which are your more abstract creations. These are more like your belief systems, your family patterns. Like here in the United States, we think of a family as generally speaking being like two parents and their children. In other areas around the world, it might be a man, all of his wives, and all of their children together. It might be extended generations living all in the same household. It's also like your political system, your economic system, the rules that go along with like your work practices, things like that. So like here in the United States, we generally speaking think of a work week as a 40-hour work week. That's what we consider to be full-time. So a lot of times when we talk about culture, we also speak of society. Society is a group of people who live within a specific geographic area who share that common culture and therefore a feeling of unity. So society has kind of a geographical component to it. So we would say that people, you could say that Pittsburghers are a society. We live in a specified geographic area and we share this common culture. And we'll see here in a moment, part of culture is language. So like you might hear Pittsburgh say the word yinzer or something like that. Like that's part of our culture. By the way, you will never, ever, ever in your life hear me say the word yinzer in any context other than this example. Okay, so there's 5 different components to culture, regardless of like where you find culture in society, like around the world, whatever. All culture consists of the same 5 components. The first component is technology. Technology accounts for all the physical objects we use, as well as the rules that we have for using them. It's not just stuff that needs to be plugged in. So yes, your phone, your laptop, your Chromebook, all of that falls under the category of technology, as does like television. But so do cars, so do kitchen chairs, so do clothing, things like that. And it's not just the object themselves. It's also the rules that we put in place, what society says is acceptable or unacceptable. So for example, it is unacceptable to engage in hacking, okay? But computer programming is fine. The second component of culture are symbols. A symbol is anything that stands for something else. And in order for it to be effective, it has to be a commonly understood meaning. Like everyone has to be in agreement of it. Symbols are really the basis of human culture. The written language that we have is symbolic. The spoken language that we have is symbolic. We can also use body language as a symbol. So like, if you look here, I have this, which means okay in American society. We use it as a way of saying like all good. In other areas around the world, it means a body orifice. So there's a big difference between saying like, hey, it's all good, and hey, that's like a butthole, right? Down here, I have this one, which we commonly think of as more of like a rock on sort of thing, which great, but it also means, your spouse is being unfaithful to you in Italy, which I'm not entirely sure why you would have a symbol for that. I mean, I guess maybe it makes slightly less awkward conversation. I don't have to pull you aside and tell you your spouse is cheating on you. I can just tell you like, there we go, spouse is cheating on you, right? We also have like this one, like we see that as like, you're crazy. In Argentina, it means you have a telephone call. So in order to communicate effectively, you have to understand the symbolic meaning behind words and gestures in other areas around the world. It can cause problems. Like when we were in the first Iraq war, we were using the OK symbol to communicate with, we were using Saudi Arabia as a launching point for our airstrikes, and we were using OK as the symbol to say, hey, we're all good. Well, in Saudi Arabia, it means the body orifice, and we couldn't understand at first why these Saudi Arabians were getting, like, you know, giving us, like, side looks and stuff, like, what's going on here? And then once we came to the realization that, you know, the symbol that we were giving is not what they were interpreting, it made things a whole lot better, and we changed to thumbs up. Okay, so the next area of culture is language. Language is your organization of written or spoken symbols into some type of standardized system so that we can communicate basically any idea that's out there. It is probably the most obvious aspect of culture and the one that we think of whenever we reference culture. And I've included after this PowerPoint, also on Google Classroom, just a fun video on language, because language is constantly evolving. Words that we use today, we did not use 10 years ago, and there will be words that we use 10 years from now that we didn't use prior to today. You know, things like when I was in high school, you didn't Google anything. Why? Google didn't exist, right? I'm that old, which is sad, and we're going to move on. All right. So the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis says that, like, language is kind of reflective of culture, that different languages lead to different perceptions. So, like, about what's good or bad, what's right or wrong, and that different values produce different material and non-material culture, and therefore different language. So I'm sure you've heard before that the Inuit, which are sometimes referred to as Eskimos, which is a naughty word and we shouldn't say it, like the Inuit have like 20 different words for snow because snow is so important in their culture. Well, some cultures are going to have a ton of different words for war. Some are going to have a ton of different words for cooperation. The amount of words that you have are reflective of something's importance in your culture. So like in our culture, we have a lot of words that relate back to time. Time is something that's really, really, really vital in our culture. We talk about minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, seconds, nanoseconds. Like, I mean, we have a lot of words to break down time. So again, example, Americans and time. All right. The next component of culture are values. Values are your shared beliefs, right? Shared beliefs are, again, what you think of as being good or bad, right or wrong, desirable or undesirable. And they can be either true or false. Like a false belief can be very, very powerful. So for example, during World War II, individuals in Germany believed that if you had a picture of Hitler on your wall could withstand war. We know that there's no way that a picture of someone on your wall is going to make your wall withstand a mortar attack. But that, again, that was a belief. So just because something is false doesn't make it any less powerful. And again, it helps to determine the character of the people and the type of culture they create and the type of words that they will have within their culture. And then finally, we have norms. We've talked about norms already. You did a norm breaking project for me earlier this year. Norms are the shared rules of conduct that tell us how to behave in specific situations. We have two different types of norms. We have folkways. Folkways are your norms that do not have a great amount of significance attached to them. They are things like chew with your mouth closed, cover your yawn, things like that. We also have mores. Mores are norms that do have a lot of moral significance attached to them. They are things like don't steal, don't murder. Usually, really important norms are then formalized as laws so that they can be enforced by the government and there can be some type of punishment put in place for someone who does not adhere to those mores. One of the things we need to keep in mind is that culture is constantly changing. So if you remember a few years back ago, people were YOLO, right? You only live once. You don't go around saying YOLO anymore. And please don't start saying YOLO ever again because it was pretty awful. But new technology creates the need for new language, creates the needs for, new words, changes our belief system. Like these things are all intermingled with one another. So there's no assignment for class today. When we come back next time, we'll take a look at cultural components and variations within society. And I do have, like I said, a couple little videos here that show you The first one is on language and kind of the evolution of language, if you will. And then I have one on beauty standards around the world, because different societies value different things. And if you notice while you're watching it, like something, just like little hint, keep in mind, it seems as though a lot of times what we value, like what we believe is beautiful, is the thing that is, it's not readily found, if you will. So anyway, I guess I will see you guys in 2 days. Please stay safe.